Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again with another video, another build in the Trial Ancestors League, where I haven't actually done the league mechanic in quite a while because it's really not friendly towards people that make lots and lots of characters, as you got to start over and over again. I digress. This is the Energy Blade, Spectral Throw, Cast on Crit, Blazing Salvo, Inquisitor. You guys may have picked up on the fact that I do like me some Energy Blade by now, and this is yet another attempt at it. Possibly the best attempt I've had thus far. I've built a character pretty similar to this a couple leagues ago, I think it is, yeah, a couple leagues ago, and it had Eye of Winter as its main damage dealer while using Lancing Steel. This time around, I wanted to have my trigger be Spectral Throw with a secondary projectile from an alt quality, and then the ever-popular Blazing Salvo and Sniper's Mark plus Return Proj interaction. Now, I haven't done any Blazing Salvo probably ever, I don't think. So this is the first time in a cast-on crit setup that... basically, you're getting all of your damage coming from Energy Blade, and then with Spell Blade the way it is right now, and Battle Mage, it gets pretty overpowered. So as an intro to Energy Blade, if you, somehow missed it, stack a lot of Energy Shield, cut that in half, and half of your Energy Shield goes to lightning damage on a weapon, and then that weapon... you either attack with it, or you use things like Battle Mage and Spell Blade to turn that weapon attack damage into spell damage. And Spell Blade really is quite a big game changer for these types of builds. It's damn near doubled the output of all the previous Energy Blade builds out there. And I've seen some very big examples of Energy Blade at the moment. So this one, it's going to be a bit more of a... basic setup. So none of these Energy Blade setups are super hard to put together. It's just kind of expensive at times, depending on which way you go, because they're very methodical in what they use. Very similar setups and a lot of uniques. And just a quick clip background here that I've also tried to incorporate Tempest Shield into the build to do some good block reflect damage stuff, which should be useful for just really large scale situations like Expedition, and then hopefully for Simulacrum, stuff like that as well. I just thought it'd be kind of cool to have Tempest Shield do some damage, because in this type of a setup you do have a lot of lightning damage going towards all of your spells, and that includes Tempest Shield, and it hits really fucking hard. So built into some Tempest Shield, and yeah, it can do some extra damage, but by all means it's absolutely optional in this type of a setup. So as I was saying, the actual gear itself is pretty stock standard at this point. It's been pretty figured out how to build a good Energy Blade as an Inquisitor to get lots of strength and int, using an Ivory Tower and a Wrath Pith and Shaper's Touch and Crown of the Inward Eye. It's basically this just stock standard setup where all you have to do is get a couple of rings, an amulet, maybe a belt, and the rest is just gonna work. You get lots of int, you get lots of strength, you cap out your crit because of that, and as I was saying, like some of the biggest Energy Blade examples out there have double, almost triple my current Energy Shield, so they can be very, very large. Whereas this one is a bit more basic, and hopefully still dealing a similar amount of damage, while also having a good amount of defense. So there's a bit of a difference in how we build these things, and I've just gone ahead and tried to make my own scuffed version that doesn't cost too much but still performs pretty well. And so far so good. Like, Spectral Throw has been a great trigger with faster proj. You just kind of have to take care of and fix up some of the attack speed so it doesn't feel too bad. So it's been a good trigger, and then Blazing Salvo, especially with faster proj during mapping, clears really quite nicely. It's pretty quick, and then at the end of the day, once you swap in Return Proj, it can do some serious damage if you're standing on top of the enemy, because as you can see here, a lot of my proj just come back to me. So if I'm standing away from it, then it's not doing too much extra, but I've yet to test into really thick content. I just assume that it's going to go really well because the DPS on the character is pretty decent. It's also built very kind of durable on recovery and thickness, and I really would be shocked if this doesn't end up being the strongest build for the league, for me, simply because it just has all the right stuff and doesn't exactly cost too much, and should perform pretty well. It may even end up scoring something like my fabled 30 out of 30 on the end scaling sheet, which really doesn't mean much, but yeah, it's just probably going to tick all the right boxes. So far it's been really good, and I plan to take on a whole bunch of Ubers and everything pretty soon. But first of all, let me go ahead and show you how I built the character so far. So there's our character level 93 XDD Sludge, just an emote in chat that does things. Yeah, as you can see, 1040 strength, 1100 int. So you are stacking strength and int at the same time to get lots of percent energy shield, to get lots of life, and to scale Shaper's Touch, and to be scaling Ivory Tower, and to be getting all of your crit from Righteous Providence. So it's a pretty popular way of doing this sort of thing. And like I said, I've done it a couple of times myself from the past, and this is another attempt at a build that doesn't use split personalities this time. So it's pretty conventional, common to go all the way around here. You split personalities and get a whole bunch more int and strength. Those are pretty costly, but you know, this type of a build and Energy Blade, this scaling setup system, sky's the limit. Like, you can spend hundreds of divines, or you can spend something like 10 to 15 and get a good basic setup going. So first thing I'll talk about is basically the flasks. We've only got 3 flasks here, and the most important one being Coruscating Elixir. It prevents chaos damage from killing you while you have this little amount of life and mana. So Ivory Tower does have chaos damage taken from mana before life, but that doesn't really matter because we reserve all our mana. So you do want a Coruscating Elixir so that the energy shield doesn't go through, so the chaos damage doesn't go through your energy shield. And you want to basically make sure that this flask is always going and always going to be up. And to do that, you run the Traitor Keystone. So Traitor over here, 4 flask charges per empty flask slot every 5 seconds. So with 2 empty flask slots, you can almost guarantee that it's going to always constantly sustain itself. It will sometimes run out after like a few minutes with this kind of a setup. You can spec more into like reduced flask charges, into increased flask charges gained, stuff like that to have better sustain. Likewise, if you want like an extra flask there so you can run 4 flasks, and maybe even Pathfinder, then you got to spec some other shit as well. But this kind of a setup, you can have 3 flasks going pretty much infinitely, just by not having 2 extra flasks. So Coruscating Elixir is something you're going to have to press at the start of every map, and then it just goes off. And at the same time, that means that you can have a Topaz, a Sapphire, or some other blue flasks that help you out. And in this case, I'm using both of these to help cap resists. So a bunch of resists there, and some attack speed and some charge gained back on this one, because as you can see, my setup means that I've got minus 11 res. So the entire setup, I've basically got no resistances anywhere, and instead just perma sustain off of these flasks. And running out of flasks and not pressing flasks has yet to get me killed. It's been completely fine, and it's a pretty nice clean setup, so you don't have to actually press any flasks while gaming. So with our setup, you can currently see we've got an Energy Blade of 200 to 4,000 damage, and then that gets turned into spell damage for our Blazing Salvo using Spellblade and Battle Mage. So if we turn off Energy Blade at the moment, let's just go here. Energy Blade, turn it off. We've got 18,000 energy shield, and our Salvo does 19k average damage. Turn on Energy Blade, and it goes up to 161, and our energy shield gets cut in half. But you can sometimes during, like, let's say Shaper Bullet Hell, stuff like that, just turn your Energy Blade off and have a whole bunch more energy shield at your disposal. But of course you won't be doing almost any damage. Just got to remember to turn it back on. Now it does of course respect sockets in your weapon, so if you grab an abyssal socket from I don't know, usually from trade, but hollowed fossils. You can just keep an abyssal socket on your energy blade when you turn it into one, and that is pretty convenient as well. And there we've just got some extra stats and some energy shield on it. So the usual setup here is ivory tower. Lots of energy shield per reserve life. So you stack life, you stack energy shield, and it turns into more energy shield with this. And then you go Wrath Pith and you get crit and spell damage per the life that you've sacrificed. Yeah, it's just basically free real estate with this style of setup. You then go Crown of the Inward Eye for all that extra damage, for all the scalings that you've got. And that's the usual setup for Energy Blade, as well as Shaper's Touch, which gives you pretty much all of your other energy percent scaling and fixes your accuracy, gives you some extra mana. Yep. And then you can as well go Evasion if you really want. So my current setup, I've got all these auras, but if we really want, with what I've got on this shield at the moment, Grace, if I turn that off, turn off my haste and turn on Grace instead, which I have done just for like a couple of maps that were really, really dumb, using memory maps. You can see I've got like basically no evasion. With my current setup, just having Grace on puts me at a huge amount of evasion, and I may end up running this for like Simulacrum, for example. So I don't really need the haste there necessarily, and then we'll just be way thicker. But for the most part, I am mapping with haste, just so it feels a bit smoother. And then I've got determination on my life, and using precision and clarity to help fix mana, and then discipline and haste on my mana otherwise. So that's over here: determination, precision, clarity, arrogance, to reserve as much life as possible, but not fully, because I'm actually also using skills cost 30%, so that I can sustain my attacks just a little bit better. But more about the passive tree real quick. So usually the passive tree is like snake around everywhere, do split personalities. So I don't have split personalities, so it doesn't cost that little bit more. And it seems to still work out pretty well. You get a trader keystone with, in this case, I just got some life and increased effective auras on these. We've got block cap from spells and attacks, almost. Which means that Tempest Shield goes off quite frequently. We've got Onslaught on hit for a tattoo over here. And other than that, just a little bit of spell crit, bunch of other stuff. And I have just taken Battle Mage. So to begin with, I spec Battle Mage, but then I spec'd into this stuff and yanked Battle Mage because it's the cheapest thing. So if you want this type of a setup, you can either steal this, or this. This and this both pretty cheap. This infinitely expensive. So you just take whatever's cheapest. But Templars have a lot of cool shit that you can steal. So from Hierophant and from Guardian. And these days the most popular, overpowered thing to do is steal the reserve and energy shield node from Hierophant, but that thing's like 100 divines combo, something like that. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff you can choose to do. Like I was thinking of going just pure block cap as a Guardian, yoinking the Guardian node and then not doing glancing. You can do that if you want. It's just not really necessary. Like an energy blade build like this, you can build lots and lots of energy blade. Just have a big buffer of life and make sure you are recovering life through either energy leech, some sort of recovery, some leech energy shield on kill, some discipline, or a leech, a energy shield on hit, discipline, Watcher's Eye. So I was thinking about grabbing one of those because it would make this character probably unkillable, but currently I'm just doing this. This one was a couple of divines, and I'm probably going to have Zealotry and Wrath in my setup instead of determination and haste when I'm doing bossing. I've yet to try that, but that's probably what I'll end up having. So other than that, you just grab some fractures and run some essences to get more strength and int, and then hopefully get some minus mana cost on your rings and stuff, and even amulet, and then belt, just a hunter, either Stygian or heavy belt, and then just roll essences once again. So you're just basically donkey rolling essences until you get all the stats and stuff. So it can be a bit costly, but each of these items are probably like 2 to 4 divines investment, just depending on how lucky you get. And usually you are just locking suffixes, and then finishing prefixes with some manner of convenience. And then, yep, boots that do some chaos res and fuck all else. And then I do have a good 3-rat talisman. So I was using an Astramentus, and you probably will just easily use an Astramentus for as long as you want, right up until endgame if you really want. But last level, so I used an Astramentus up until level 92. Basically, you just end up making a bunch of these sorts of amulets. So fracture them, buy the fracture with all stats ideally, then use essences until you hit crit multi, lock suffixes, unveil prefixes. This one got a bit luckier with a life roll, and then you just go into Jorgen in Betrayal, Research, Tier 3, and eventually you will hit a 3-rat talisman. It took me my 4th go to get it this time around, so wasn't too bad, but yeah, it might take you 10 to 15 goes. You might get it first try. The amulets are going to be very expensive on the market, but you can reliably make them yourself. It just takes a little bit of effort. But other than that, Astramentus will take you all the way through the game either way, so you don't really have to do one of these in any case. So the setup here is cast on crit with Divergent Spectral Throw using Blazing Salvo, and in this setup you can have basically any spell you want, because the main focus of the damage is just lightning damage on top of everything else. So whatever the fuck you want. It's currently pretty powerful to do Salvo with Sniper's Mark with Return Proj. You get a lot of mishmash of projectiles and overlaps, and it's pretty good. I use Faster Proj for mapping, and then Return Proj for single target, and then got crit damage here as well. We should be just about capped on crit. Not quite, need a couple more levels, but 98 on Spectral Throw. The Salvo should have 100, so very reliable character, very decent all the way throughout the game. And then I also use an extra flask just for mapping, because you should be able to sustain flasks while actually killing stuff all the time, but this is the infinite flask setup for boss fighting, so we don't use this for boss fighting. But yeah, that is the character. Hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully there's nothing left unanswered for the most part, and hopefully I'll have a fat boss killing video for next time where this character goes out and just kills everything nicely. We'll see how we go. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.